Hello, magnificent human beings. My name is Landon with Yoga New Mexico, where we focus on empowerment, alignment, and strength. You are in the right place, capable and strong. What are we going to do today? What are we doing this week? It is Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. And I have a secret to tell you. I've been avoiding doing this posture forever now. And the reason is because it is one of the most used and done poses in yoga, but it is definitely one of the most misunderstood postures as well. I hope to demystify this because there are a lot of very little things to go through. So let's dive right in. Go ahead and roll out your mat, and I'm going to roll the intro screen. Okay, downward facing dog. Now, I have heard this called downward facing dog, and then there's down dog, and that's, well, I guess pretty much it. There's really not a lot of different names for this posture. The Sanskrit, Adho Mukha Svanasana, and I've also heard Adho Mukha Savasana as well. And to be honest, I don't know which is the exact perfect right term. In terms of its Shavanasana or Savasana, but I know it is not Shavasana, which is corpse pose. And I think, those get kind of used interchangeably sometimes. So don't say Adho Mukha Shavasana because that's not what it is. Nonetheless, looking at this posture, I think the biggest thing where people start to go wrong in this pose has to do with the distance of where their hands and their feet are. And we pick up bad habits because a lot of the times you'll hear, assuming you're in tabletop, you'll be in your tabletop pose, and then you may hear the instructor say, okay, tuck your toes, and now bring it into downward facing dog. But watch what happens. Look how shallow my down dog is. And then people will go, oh, this is too shallow, so they walk their hands out a little bit, and then they're thinking they're kind of in their down dog. When in reality, a much better posture to get into this pose is plank, because that will give you that wide stance that you really need. So let's talk very briefly then about plank pose. So starting off in plank, you want your shoulders just beyond your wrists, not back, but just barely over your wrists here. And then you're high on those toes. So you're not back here on the balls of your feet, you're actually on those tippy toes. And then from here, this sets you up really nicely to come into your down dog. And what happens is people think, oh, okay, I'm in my down dog, and then they'll start walking their feet up. So these are those small little bad habits that we have that we really need to try and break, is because if you're used to doing your down dog like so many of us are without really, we've done it so much that sometimes we don't think about it, so we pick up these bad habits. So wherever you are in your practice, just maybe try to forget about everything you've ever learned about down dog. Take what I'm going to tell you here, and then go back to your mat, practice your down dog, and then if it still doesn't feel right, perfect. I encourage you to take what I tell you and then incorporate what you've learned also as well. Everybody's body is different. Everybody is going to have, different little tweaks. But some of the tips here are really to kind of perhaps help to break you of old habits per se. So starting off in plank pose, shoulders slightly over those wrists, you're high on those tippy toes, and then leave your hands and your feet exactly where they are. Don't walk them up or back. Transition into downward facing dog. So if you notice, fingertips spread really wide, and my back is nice and flat. My head is relaxing in between my shoulders, And my knees are bent just a little bit. And look how far my heels are off of the mat. That is a good thing because I think there's this big myth about downward facing dog that your heels need to be able to touch. And I think there's lots of muscle groups that downward facing dog gets into. Depending on where you are in your practice, you're going to progressively find more and more and more of them. But for the majority of folks who kind of have tight hamstrings, I would not worry at all about stretching out your legs in your down dog. Now, I understand when you first get into your down dog in kind of a vinyasa flow type class, right? Or whatever it is, the instructor says, okay, alternate your heels down to the mat. And this feels good because you're bringing life into your body and you're waking things up and you're kind of getting those hamstrings and those calves awake, which is perfectly fine. But this is more for a sort of, say, traditional hatha approach, where if you want to come into the posture, downward facing dog, and stay there for 5 to 50 breaths, then these are the kind of tips to help get you into that. So the whole thing about getting your heels to touch on the mat, I'm just going to say it right now, forget about it. Don't worry about it. It does not matter. Who cares? As a matter of fact, lift your heels off because then it gives you something to strive for. And you lift your heels off, you have those soft knees, and you want to raise your tailbone. So that's kind of the feeling that I think really comes from down dog is it's in your back, is that feeling of lifting your tailbone and pressing through those hands. You feel this a lot in your back. And then as you get a lot more flexible, then you eventually start to feel it in those hamstrings and in your calves as well. So heels are lifted off, that's fine. Knees are soft. And you press into the mat and relax your neck. Here is the next tip about downward facing dog. It has a lot to do with your forearm strength, because in yoga, there's all these things about how you engage here and you relax here and you do all this. Well, there's a million of those little things going on in your downward facing dog. So it first starts in your fingertips, strong fingertips pressing into the mat, which you need those forearm muscles to be able to do this, to really press into the mat. And you want to really activate those forearm muscles, but then try to relax your shoulders. And I know it's weird to say that because these muscles and these muscles are so close to one another, especially when you're upside down and you're pressing. But we talk about kind of this cool thing of like pinching or rolling your shoulder blades together in your downward facing dog. And I don't know if that is exactly correct, because I feel that happens naturally when you relax this top part of your spine and your neck here. So when you relax those muscles all along, the top part of your spine and your neck, those shoulder blades kind of come together anyways, and you don't have any strength in that area because you're using the strength in your forearms to press into the mat. I know it's a lot, right? But let's try to take a look here. So really strong forearms on the mat, strong fingertips, pressing in, and then think about what your forearms are doing, nice and strong on the mat, and relax your shoulders. It's weird, I know, and especially relax your head and your neck. So the power comes from your forearms pressing in and then your tailbone lifting as well. So it's a lot of forearm strength, I know. And everybody's at a different place in their practice. And you're going to think, well, I don't have enough forearm strength to really be able to do that. So then what happens is you start to rely on other parts of your body, right? Well, I'm going to contradict everything I just said, because to help you to get this feeling, you might want to shallow up your down dog a little bit. And I know I said, well, you want a nice wide stance, right? Well, here's the thing, is that sometimes you need to compensate in one area to get how the feeling should be, because then you're going to know as you work backwards into, where your feet should be, how things should actually feel. So if you cannot relax your neck completely and press really hard into the mat, then walk your feet up a tiny bit. And then make sure your knees are really, really bent. And then press through and relax your neck. So that's going to help you to be able to really get into your down dog better. And even taking that shallower stance, in your down dog is fine. We have this terrible myth in our mind that our heels should be touching in down dog. So we think that is the point from where everything starts. So if your heels touch in down dog, wherever you are, then your back is going to round significantly. Now, this isn't true for people who have really loose hamstrings and are really flexible. You can keep a nice flat back, whether, you're swinging your legs all the way through like L seat or bringing them, all the way back into down dog. It doesn't matter. But for many of us, keeping soft knees will help you to keep that flat back. So heels touching. See how it starts to make my back round? We don't want that. So soft knees, fingertips spread wide, press through those fingertips, strong forearms, relax your neck, breathe. So there you have it, your downward facing dog. I know there's a lot of things going on. And again, I said, forget everything you learned and then take what I've taught you here and then bring it into your practice and then combine what you've learned before. So, and the reason why I'm not going to give you the wholehearted big, yes, this is the answer to downward facing dog, because it takes years and years and years of practice to really find what you feel is your best downward facing dog. I thought I had it really, really good about 9 months ago. And then you start to kind of change and shift things and you realize, oh, this is a little better and this is a little better. I'm just saying that my tips are to help kind of maybe break some myths, and don't trust everything exactly what I say. I just want to use strong language because that's what it takes sometimes to break through old habits in our brain. We think, oh, our heels have to touch in down dog. Well, that's crap. Your heels don't have to touch in down dog ever. It doesn't matter. I'm more concerned that you are seeking to gently lift your tailbone and press your fingertips into the mat so you get that lengthening in your back. That is my main concern. So thank you all so much for being here. This week is all about downward facing dog. Join us for Friday, where we'll be doing a full class that revolves around this pose. Once again, you are all amazing, magnificent human beings in the right place, capable and strong. From my heart to all of yours, namaste.